You're telling me that someone who's capable of operating my body finds investing in a mutual fund scary? There is something wrong with us.
What advice would you give to women entrepreneurs?
We run houses, we run careers, we take care of so many people. We can't run a couple of mutual funds. I mean, come on. There are tools in mutual funds that can give you recurring income.
Men or women? Who do you think are better at investing?
Trigonometry is taught to us in our schools, but not personal financial planning, which is a crucial life-saving skill. Only 10% of women globally feel that they know about investing, that they understand investing. 33% of the women don't even invest at all. 45% of women feel that stock markets are risky and they need to stay away from them. Hence, most of these women end up turning to assets like fixed deposits or public provident funds, which don't even beat inflation. That means that money which is parked in these asset classes is actually degrowing. Which brings us to our today's podcast, why women need to have financial planning discussions. Ms. Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO at Edelweiss Mutual Funds, former co-founder at your own Forefront Capital, a sari lover, a Diplo brat that I want to talk more about, a mother, and accredited young global leader by World Economic Forum. It's good to have you here, Radhika. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
All right, how have you been?
I have been very well. I've been rather busy, which is a constant state of existence these days.
Good to know
But
that you're busy.
well.
So, Radhika, what is that one thing that really drives you, that is your purpose, that is your passion, that makes you get up in the morning and take on the day? Since you've been managing money since the past almost 18 years, since your stint at AQR Capital?
Yeah, I guess most of my career I've been doing money management. One thing that really drives me, I think, to do the best of the opportunities I'm given. I think India is a tremendous opportunity. So India drives me. But I fundamentally believe that one should respect opportunities. And I think my generation has an incredible opportunity to build meaningful things, meaningful businesses, have impact. And I guess that's what drives me.
Making use of opportunities.
Making use of opportunities, respecting opportunities, respecting the opportunities that come my way.
So I'm going to get into an experience of mine, which is the very essence of this podcast. So a couple of years back, I was working on the financial planning of one of my clients, a well-respected doctor in India. And I could see that he was responsible for the entire financial management of his complete family. So one day at 6 p.m., as I was wrapping up the discussion with him, his spouse walked into the room. And I introduced myself. I knew that she was also one of the investors because her name was also a part of the portfolio holders. So I asked her to join us. She was a well-educated woman in her 50s, completely polished. And my sense was that she was also a doctor. Doctors typically tend to get married to each other and create an ecosystem of their own.
Yeah.
So when I asked her to join us for her financial planning discussions, her answer really shocked me. She said that all of these financial planning discussions go over my head. And my husband takes care of all of the decisions. And I want him to take care of all of the decisions. So I won't be a part of this meeting. And that troubled me. I believe women are sentient beings capable of taking financial planning decisions. They should by all means take their decisions, whether financial decisions or health-wise. And this is a big gender investment gap and a gender education gap that I want to address. So how will you aim to bridge this gap? And this is also the title of our show. Why should women be having financial planning discussions?
So I think in her answer, Shalini, you have the two problems that most women typically have with getting involved in financial planning. One is, ye mere liye bahut technical types hai, and two, I can outsource it to someone else. And gender investment gap is a nice term. I think there are multiple things that have to be done. One is, I think planners like you play a very significant role in bringing women into the discussion. In a lot of conversations with women I have, they are hesitant to approach the male of the household to even know about money. So a lot of the reluctance comes there. When people like you in reviews and conversations can bring them into the discussion, like you attempt to do, and it is not easy because so many times there's resistance, I think change will happen. I think change will happen when the male of the household pushes the woman of the household that you need to know. I think change will happen when we simplify a lot of what is technical in finance to be very ordinary so it doesn't go over their head. I mean, imagine someone is a doctor, right? You need so many qualifications and so much effort to be a doctor.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm a finance professional. मैंने 4 साल की college की पढ़ाई की है. The person you're talking to is a doctor.
At least 7 years of education.
She's far more educated on a technical basis than me. You're telling me that someone who's capable of operating my body finds investing in a mutual fund scary? There is something wrong with us in our language. So I think language has to be. And it is a constant effort. I do believe change is happening, right? There are more women planners out there. There are more platforms that are having these conversations. Women want to try. Men are saying life is uncertain. So it's an ecosystem.
So you brought out 2 important points. One, the male of the family has to take the initiative to bring their spouses in the discussions.
Yeah,
and secondly,
make them sit there.
Yeah. And secondly, the discussions have to be a lot more uncomplicated. But one important part over here, and it was at the back of my head during that discussion, was what happens 20-25 years later?
Yeah.
When, God forbid, the current decision maker may not be there. Would it be easy for you to have these discussions at that stage if you are currently not prepared? Will you have access to the finances?
I have had situations like this in my family where I have seen the exact same situation that you're talking about. And the woman of the family, after an eventuality like the one you're talking about, again highly educated, is so frustrated that she's not even able to log into a bank account or pay the credit card bill. So by the way, the one lesson here for the man of the family or anyone is, please document everything you have so that it is not difficult for the person afterwards.
Correct.
Because in this world of OTPs and security and fraud, once you pass away, if you have not checked the boxes, it becomes a nightmare. I have seen women handling things as complicated as death, handling their children, but getting scared by the sight of a bank statement or paying a credit card bill and just being totally overwhelmed. So is it possible to recuperate and learn afterwards? It's always possible. But is it much harder? It is much harder. And remember, when you go through situations like that, those situations are already emotionally so painful that you don't want this to be a source of pain. And I repeat, you don't have to go from 0 to 100 in terms of financial education in 1 year. But can you learn a little bit every week? That I think is doable. I see people in my own family now who I have pushed. उनकी समझ बढ़ जाती है. They learn very quickly. I smart people. I mean, we run houses, we run careers, we take care of so many people. We can't run a couple of mutual funds. I mean, come on. We do this very quickly if we put our mind to it. And it's much easier to do this gradually than in an eventuality.
Absolutely. And one important thing that I encourage all family members to do is have their individual financial plans, which has the details of their bank account and assets, and share the copies with each other. Both the spouses.
It's almost necessary. I mean, I'm glad you do it because life is extremely uncertain. And there's no harm in sharing information. The cost of not sharing information is very high.
And this brings me to our next question. And I may get some brickbats for this. Men or women? Who do you think are better at investing?
Well, the world will tell you men are better at investing. There's not enough evidence. And I don't think there needs to be a versus. I dislike the idea of investing being a competition or race. You started with this question of purpose. I think investing should be purposeful. Nobody see life is a limited overs game. We live 80, 90, whatever years, if we are lucky. And the purpose of investing is not to end up at 85 saying, you made 3 crores and 5% return and I made 15% return. I'm better. The purpose is that the money you work hard to earn, and all of us work hard to earn our money, is used in the best ways to fulfill our dreams and to help us live a better life. To me, that is the definition of successful investing. I think women can do an extraordinary job at it if they put their time to it. I've always said that for generations, women in this country have been outstanding savers.
Absolutely.
Very, very
They're brilliant at managing money.
Ghar ka CFO has always been. and they are very goal oriented. They plan for the
Yes.
family. Most women will tell the husband. I mean, my nanny, for instance, a lady of great vision, So they came from humble circumstances, but she planned that she wanted a house purchase. She planned that her children will have a better education. So goal orientation, which is what a lot of folks in your fraternity talk about, it's naturally there. So women have all the ingredients to do it well. But I really think it's not a race.
Mhm.
It is about a successful investor is not the one who makes the most money at the end of the day. A successful investor is the one that has used money to live a purposeful life.
That's a new perspective that you brought to the table to the audience, that money needs to be used purposefully rather
Purposefully.
than
Yeah.
two people being in a race competing against each other who has made more money. Excellent. All right. You talked about parents coming from a conservative background. You talked about them a lot as well. And when I read your introduction, it talked about being a Diplo brat.
Yeah.
So my inference is that you might possibly a brat child to diplomat parents, and that's why Diplo brat is the inference correct?
Yeah, I was not a bratty child. I was
Alright.
like the very well behaved kid.
Okay.
Well behaved to the point of boring, but the Diplo brat word, I guess a lot of people have heard the word army brat. So Diplo brat is a copy of army brat for diplomat kids. But yes,
Alright.
essentially we were brought up in embassies and consulates around the world.
Mhm.
As I said, I was not a bratty kid at
Okay.
all. I was like teacher's pet, extremely well behaved, listened to my parents. I don't have any wild stories from childhood. I was really very well behaved. I think I was a brat till I was 2. That was about it. That was about the end of my bratty behavior.
Sure. All right. Radhika, another experience. So I work on instilling financial planning values to my child. I have a 6-year-old daughter,
Mhm.
and I tell her that it's good to switch off the gadgets when they are
Very
not in
good.
use because you save electricity.
Yeah.
It's not good to buy too many toys in excess when you already have a cupboard
Yeah.
full, because that is the money that I can use to plan for an excellent education for you. Now, the irony is that she tells me whenever I forget to switch off a fan, she tells me that, Mom, you forgot to switch off the fan. How am I ever going to go to college like this?
Oh, fab.
So I may have somewhere created a role model of myself for my child in financial planning terms. Who do you think are women role models for you who are excellent at money management?
So, look, I think the women at home have not been investors, mom,
Yeah.
grandmom, etc. But if I look at my own mother, her money values are very solid. Saving. I was always brought up with this value for money, value for money. If you're buying something, it should be value for money.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a very famous phrase in Hindi, इसको सस्ता सुंदर टिकाऊ कहते हैं. My mother is obsessed with buying stuff that is sasta sundar
Alright.
tikau. Like I have grown up. Even today we troll her saying, Mom, sasta sundar tikau. Like I don't do too much luxury splurging. I mean, I said this in press. I don't have a luxury car. But if I ever buy diamonds or, a handbag, I'll still be like, oh God. And if the thing costs like X, I'll always tell her, Mom, it costs
Okay.
0.9x
You're still
because
scared of your
I'm
mother.
still scared of. Or like I got it on sale or
Okay.
something. Like if we're staying at a fancy property, we'll still tell her, Mom, we got it on sale.
Okay.
Coupon. So I think those are very solid money values. I remember even when I went to college, my mom would not buy me a fancy dress for prom. She would get it tailored. But when it was time to apply to college, and one college gave me scholarships and what they gave me a little less, she said, no, we should pick the best one. So on education and things like that, they've never
Sure.
compromised. Put on shoes and this and that. They
Yes,
always
very
compromise. So I think directing money towards the right places, the basic money value, I think my mother has done an
Your mother is
outstanding
good.
job. Yeah.
Great.
And I am not as paranoid as her today. I probably should be, but I'm not as paranoid as her.
All right.
Hmm.
You've also invested in lab-grown diamonds.
I have.
Right? That also somewhere aligns with
Yeah,
your thought. And
you
you're
know,
also a consumer of them. So
I-
that also kind of
I'm
aligns with
serious.
that
I
thought.
really like lab-grown diamonds. I, got to know about them through a friend who's in this business a few years ago. And then I met this company on Shark Tank. I had been hearing about them, and someone gave me this analogy, which was also used on the tank, that if you see two kids and one was naturally born and one was created out of IVF, will you love one less?
Yes, not
And they
at
said
all.
it's just grown in the lab, and I
Yeah.
said, yeah, this seems to work. So yeah, I like my lab grown diamonds. I mean, nothing wrong with them. And they're also more ecologically friendly. So there you go.
Yes, correct. And your mother would also be
Yeah.
happy. You're buying diamonds at the right price. as
Yeah,
well.
but I bought a lot of natural diamonds before lab grown showed up. So I think now I'm just like, maybe I should not buy diamonds anymore.
Alright. Radhika, in the introduction, I talked about 45% of the women thinking that stock markets are absolutely risky,
Yeah.
and these women tend to shy from investing in the stock markets completely. And I believe that equity has to be a very critical part of your financial planning, especially at a young age
Yeah.
when your financial goals are to be met in the future. So, how about bringing more women into the foray for investing in equity?
No, you necessarily have to invest in equity to create wealth. The problem is it starts with this word stock market, and people have this media created perception that the stock market is like Satta Bazaar, very risky, very speculative. And I'd say two things. One is that what is the stock market? Let's demystify. When you're investing in the stock market, you're investing in companies in India. You're investing in large companies in India. Now, if I ask most women or people, do you have optimism about India? They'll say yes. Do you have optimism about the Indian economy? People will say yes. Then how do you not have optimism about the stock market? Because the stock market is just a collection of companies that represent the economy, and they happen to be the larger ones, they're not the smaller ones. So I think you have to demystify this. This is my point on simplification. The other point I make to women is that people have this belief that I'm 100% FD or I'm 100% stock market. Today there is something in the middle, right? You can be 20-80. You can start. You can do asset allocation, as I'm sure you preach. You can do products that are in the middle. So even if you want to buy a mutual fund, there means mutual funds are risky. But there are mutual funds.
Balanced mutual fund.
Yeah, they're balanced mutual funds. So there's all kind of. I think the key is to have your mind open. So like with a lot of family members, like my mother-in-law, she's a big investor in balanced funds. She used to be a property and FD person. We gradually moved her to like hybrid mutual funds, equity savings, then balanced, all of that. Now she's a big advocate.
Excellent.
And again, you don't have to go from not knowing how to swim to diving in an Olympic pool.
Yeah.
You can
Have to
go
find a midway.
wet your feet in the baby pool and get better.
Right. You talked about your mother-in-law gradually investing in balanced mutual funds. Were you crucial? Did you play an integral part in educating her towards the equity market?
More than me, actually, my husband,
Your husband,
because he's also from this industry. But yes, I think collectively, yes. And today, I would say she should be the brand ambassador for Mutual Fund Sahi Hai, because she's again highly educated but never was involved in finances. But today, she will tell you about the power of liquidity, the power being able to access her money. She used a line that I love, that when she was investing in deposits, she was not getting the returns that she needed. When she was investing in, real estate, she was struggling with tenant problems.
Okay.
Yes. But with mutual funds, she's got dignity of her money. She's got purpose from her money. She's able to, her sons are well settled, all of that. But she's able to travel, use her money to live a purposeful life in her 60s and 70s. And that's beautiful.
Yes. That's precisely deriving purpose from your investment.
And it's beautiful because she's like, finally, she's almost 70, right? What's the benefit of her owning 2 pieces of property and feeling good and having to deal with a tenant versus she's invested in these balanced funds. She gets quarterly income and she's traveling. She enjoys going out with her like college classmates and taking foreign vacation. She's living a purposeful life and we feel so good because my husband and I, our parents, belonged to middle class India. They lived tough lives. They made sacrifices for us. When they're 60, when they're 70, we want them to live the most comfortable, best lives with their own money. And I see both my parents and my husband's parents doing that.
I want to take one moment to address the point that you mentioned that your mother-in-law gets a quarterly income.
Yeah.
I think a lot of investors are not aware of the concept of an SWP.
Yes.
People still think that they can own real estate, put it on rent, and get the income, but they are not really aware of the future as to what happens if the tenant leaves it.
Yeah.
What happens if the tenant doesn't
refuses
give
to
you
vacate?
rent
Yeah, refuses to
and
vacate. We
refuses
have a
to
case
vacate.
like that also.
Or if the property is lying vacant. And
So one of
somebody
the
vandalizes it.
common reasons people invest in deposits or in property is recurring income, because people like recurring income. And I always say that, there are tools in mutual funds that can give you recurring income. You just have to tell us the tool. So I always tell my mother-in-law that if your investment is earning 10-12%, 60% of it we can withdraw. So we withdraw 6%, 7% without affecting your capital that you put in. And you tell us the frequency, Ma, and we'll set up the SWP. If tomorrow you need less, if you need more, then that's fine also.
And the brilliant part is that your capital continues to grow, and
Yeah.
you can always use it for estate planning, for passing it on to your kids.
And by the way, this SWP is also very tax efficient. आप tax पे बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं देते हो. So that is also very good. Versus interest income where you're paying full tax. So you just have to open your mind to these things.
So what one crucial piece of advice would you give to women who are A, entering into their careers or have just started their careers, and B, who are closer to their retirement stage?
So for women who are just starting, it's very simple. Get into a habit of saving and investing. I think in the early days, inculcation of habit is the most important.
SIPs will be a
If you're salaried, SIP is the best thing. Keep increasing the SIP. Target, have an aggressive target for an SIP book. Like my SIP book, I was an entrepreneur, so income was very low. But even in the last 10 years, I think my SIP book on a monthly basis has gone up 30 times. It's wild. So I have a very large SIP book. So just target that. I think for women who are closer to retirement, firstly, you don't start planning retirement when you're 60, start planning it in your 50s. But re-look at your portfolio. Hopefully by now you've saved enough. And know that you will get monthly income. Actually, the one risk I think people have with retirement is they get too conservative when they get 60. Remember, you're going to spend today with life expectancy 1/3 of your life in retirement. So my advice is, beyond all the standard planning, don't get over conservative. You can move from mid-cap to balanced, but to move into deposit, because we have to break the myth of the old retired Indian, that grey-haired auntie who's sitting in FDs and doing that, because you're going to spend 25 years of your life in retirement. And I do believe retirement, Atmanirbharta is a big word these days. Retirement should be, it's like your fourth innings. There's this midlife, quarter life, all of that. It should be the most beautiful innings of your life.
Retirement has to be the most beautiful.
It has to be your most
life.
beautiful innings. It's sunset. It should be beautiful.
Being retired doesn't mean being a conservative person.
No, it doesn't.
Entering in 100%.
In fact, many retired people have told me, have challenged my own myths. I went to one uncle in Chandigarh, and he was telling me about his portfolio, and I said, "Uncle, this is very aggressive." He said, "Yeah, dekh, I have a fully paid up home. I have a pension. My kids are settled. They don't need anything. I have more risk appetite than you." Yeah. Technically, yes.
All right. Then why not equity?
Then why not equity?
We've almost reached at the end of our podcast. One final question that I would want you to address. What advice would you give to women entrepreneurs? And for women who are entrepreneurs, who have their own businesses, their financial planning is closely linked to their businesses. So what advice would you give them on scalability of their businesses?
So I think to women entrepreneurs, obviously financial planning is very different when you've been an entrepreneur. I think you have to, at some point, once the business gets scale, learn to separate personal and professional finances. Very often we mingle too much into a company. And if you want to build a scalable business that eventually will get funded, from an investor's point of view, it has to be very independent and clean. So in the early days, mingling all this is okay. But as you become big, you have to start separating personal finances from business finances. If that means you're talking to your investors about taking income, then that is something you need to do. But you need to build the business as business.
All right. So separate your personal finances from your professional finances.
Have a clean
business.
Don't have intermingling and loans and personal expenses going out.
Hmm.
Run that as a company if you want it to scale.
Run it very professionally, and that also brings you closer to the funding opportunities.
The
from a
funding
scalability
opportunities
perspective.
or just funding, listing, whatever it is.
Brilliant, Radhika. Thank you so much for appearing on this show. It was an honor to have you here. You've definitely cleared some myths for a lot of women investors, and it is my hope and belief that through this we will be able to bring a lot more women into the foray to investing. So thank you,
Thank you, Shantanu.
for having us over here.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.